Joining us now on the Rich Eisen Show to talk about week number 9. Oh, by the way, big game coming up, week number 9 in Germany. Get up early for the game of the year of the week, the Chiefs and the Miami Dolphins. He is an insider. He is Tom Pelissero, and I am mildly disappointed that he is not wearing a hoodie today. I thought we could compare and contrast hoodies and have a hoodie off, so to speak, Tom.
I used my hoodie of the week on Thursday this week, just decided it felt like the right move at that time, try to limit myself to one per week.
Seriously? Like that's a thing?
I mean, no, but, I'm trying to – here's the thing. If I start doing 2 hoodies a week, that's the gateway to 3 hoodies a week. And pretty soon it's hoodie every day of the week. So I try to limit myself. It's moderation. That's what it's about.
Hoodies are a gateway wardrobe choice, clearly. You get 1, you get 2.
The fellas in the studio just want to see what jackets I got on, right, boys?
Absolutely. And you know what?
Boy.
Tip of the cap to
Tommy
Sarah,
Pink.
the lovely Sarah Pelissero as well. A lot of people, I think, watching your wardrobe choices this year thinking that she may have a hand in it. Regardless, I'd assume it's a team effort, but you guys are doing well. Just want you to know.
I think she thinks a lot of the things I wear are stupid, honestly. There's not a lot of input. Just occasionally it's like, what were you wearing today?
Then I take back everything I said. And, what were you wearing? What will Deshaun Watson be wearing on Sunday? My read, Tom, is if he's practicing again and he's on the podium again, and most accounts I'm hearing from people that are there are he's got pretty good zip on it. My gut says he plays this week. What do you think?
There's a lot of times when coaches say day to day, and it's the cliche. It's, as Nick Sirianni laid out recently, it's just the way that you kind of get away with not saying anything at the podium through the course of the week. But the way that everything is played out with Deshaun Watson, it is truly day to day. So if in fact he does practice again today, which I would expect, then it's going to be a question of how does he feel on Saturday? And then come Sunday morning, does he feel completely ready to go and let it rip? I mean, he thought a few weeks ago, before that Indianapolis game, that he was going to be good to go. Obviously, he got out there. He took another hit on the shoulder. It wasn't right. This is when you find this injury in baseball pitchers, it's 4 to 6 weeks. We're right around the 6-week mark right now. You would think he is getting closer. What they don't want to do is have this same sequence of events play out over and over and over through the rest of the season. The fact that he's throwing, the fact that he's on the practice field, I agree with you. It's all good signs. But honestly, until he is suited up at kickoff time, in this case, you don't 100% know.
And go back to the Indianapolis week when he did get on the podium and said it is like a pitcher's thing, and we've been consulting with baseball doctors as well to try to figure out how to move forward. I spoke to Kevin Stefanski Friday night that week, and I said, if it's a pitcher's injury, do you almost need to make the Colts a bullpen day? Like, do you have 3 quarterbacks up just in case? And he said, nah, if he's good to go, he's good to go. Well, then he didn't make it into the second quarter. He took that 1 hit, as you said. So I agree with you. The key is it's not start the game, it's finish the game and actually look like yourself and not have safeties coming from the opposite hash to pick a ball off on the sideline because you got no juice on it. All right, let's go back to the Raiders firing. I wake up 10 o'clock. I'd gone to bed early. I see it. Okay, wow. Middle of the night. Well, not really out here on the West Coast, but regardless. But then my immediate thought was, and Tom, I haven't gotten a good answer, is if you're going to do it now, I get it, but why don't you do it first thing in the morning when they get off the plane? Why do you let a coach and a GM that you're about to fire 12 hours later handle your trade deadline?
That was unusual, and it was set up, of course, in part by the fact that they had a Monday night game on the road that they got back from in the early hours of Tuesday morning. Anyone who's known Mark Davis also knows he's not really a morning person. He is an afternoon and evening type of a person. But this is something Mark Davis had been thinking about for quite a while. And quite honestly, when it comes to the trade deadline, Mark Davis didn't want to give up these star players. He wanted to figure out a way to get the most out of these guys and still be competitive because, they're not 0-8 here. They're 3-5. They still got things to play for here. And they feel like between Max Crosby, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, they got some superstars on the roster. Now, you look at the offensive line, it's got a long way to go. You look at the personnel elsewhere. Obviously, you got a quarterback change again this week with Aiden O'Connell back into the lineup. So you have moving parts. But from Mark Davis's perspective, this was not about, okay, fire them, do a fire sale, and move forward. No. I mean, about the only thing that they would have done differently, perhaps, was take Hunter Renfro's salary down to the minimum to be able to get something for him in a trade, because other teams were not going to pick up that entire salary. That would have needed to be done Monday prior to the game. So really the cadence of the schedule played into this as much as anything. But make no mistake, this was not knee-jerk. This was not Mark Davis got mad about what happened on Monday night and decided to fire everyone. This is something that had been weighing on his mind for weeks. He had had discussions with players. He had been trying to get a feel for every aspect of the football operation. And ultimately, he decided that change was needed.
I know it has not gone through yet, and it being Tom Brady's official signing of his purchase of minority share. But, Tom, what do you make of the talk, speculation, inference that Tom Brady has Mark Davis's ear in all this?
It's a good question. And I think that Tom Brady is never going to give the accurate answer, at least publicly. Certainly him and Mark have developed a relationship, him buying into the Las Vegas Aces that just won the WNBA title, which is also something that Mark Davis has had on his mind. Hey, he figured out, it's a different league, but he figured out how to win a championship there. Why can't he get it right now with the Raiders? In terms of Tom Brady, it's complicated in terms of his ownership stake, because you're talking about, number one, there were issues that have been made public about what Mark Davis would be selling that portion of the Raiders to Tom Brady for, but also the fact that Tom Brady is under contract with Fox, and it would be an unprecedented situation to have somebody who's a part owner of one team doing production meetings and calling games on other teams. And so there's no certainty at this point that Tom Brady's purchase will ever get through, at least not with some modifications or potential changes to what his role would be at Fox. So this is something to keep an eye on. They didn't vote on it. They didn't discuss it at the October meeting. We'll see if that changes at the December league meeting. Otherwise, you're talking about going through this entire season without that actually becoming final. And if at some point you have to wonder whether, number one, Tom Brady will never become a part owner of the Raiders, or number two, Tom Brady will never actually be in a booth at Fox.
Talking to Tom Pelissero, real quick, one last thing on the Raiders. Do we agree that Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get the Derek Carr treatment? Like, we're going to put you in a box, go stand in the corner, and, because of the money due next year, you're not playing again here?
Well, I think that above all else, they think they've got something in Aiden O'Connell, and they want to see him on the field. Garoppolo's already got $11.25 million fully guaranteed for next year. With Derek Carr, it was all injury guaranteed money, which is part of the reason that you didn't want him on the field, because if you get hurt, then now that money becomes guaranteed. With Garoppolo, he's got 11.25 fully guaranteed next year, plus an $11.25 million roster bonus due in March. So the new general manager of the team, whether that's Champ Kelly, who's the interim, or it's somebody else, is going to have to make some decisions here. A little bit of a similar situation as Derek Carr a year ago, in terms of you got to make a decision earlier on in the calendar. Is it possible to trade Jimmy Garoppolo? Not if people watch the tape from Monday night. It's going to be really difficult here. We've obviously seen Garoppolo play at a high level for a long period of time. It's one of many things that they're going to have to sort through, because remember, it's not like you ever get a clean slate entirely. You've got other players that they brought in. You got Jacoby Myers, who's guaranteed for next year. You've got other signings that they made. You're locked into some stuff, which is kind of what happens when you bring people in who you have to know on some level are going to do a rebuild culturally as well as personnel-wise, and then you fire them after a year and a half.
Yeah, I got a lot of clapback on social media when I said I'd rather have Jimmy Garoppolo in Minnesota than Josh Dobbs, or Jimmy Garoppolo in Atlanta than either of the two options there. And I know he played poorly Monday night. I know he has not played well recently, and he has the back injury also. But that's another thing about, like, the trade deadline. Like, if you could have unloaded him, if you knew you were going to make this move, if you had gotten rid of your GM before 4 p.m. Eastern time and maybe looked in that direction. I know the contract's an issue here. I still think he would have been a better option, but that's just me.
Take the Vikings, for instance, here, Andrew. You have Kirk Cousins at the trade deadline is 2 days removed from tearing his Achilles, right? He hadn't even had the surgery at that point. Kevin O'Connell voiced something publicly this week that I know has been the private discussion, which is they would like Kirk Cousins to be back in 2024. If you make a move to, for instance, trade for a Jimmy Garoppolo, who's got guaranteed money in 2024, or a Kyler Murray that I know is speculated on, he's got guaranteed money out into 2025, you're limiting your options in terms of whether it is bringing Kirk back, whether it's drafting a quarterback high. By trading for Dobbs, you're locked into nothing beyond this season. You have Jaren Hall, who's going to get the start this week. You go out and you see, hey, is this guy Brock Purdy? If he's not, and of course the odds are stacked against anyone playing like Brock Purdy down did down the stretch last year. Now you got Josh Dobbs, and he steps in. And if that doesn't work out, but you're still in the thick of the playoff race, you still could go out and sign a veteran or do something else. It's just the trade market that's cut off at this point. The Vikings took, and I can tell you this, Andrew, they explored a lot of different options. They pursued a lot of different options. They all fit in the same category, which was nothing that was going to impact beyond 2023. Dobbs ended up being the one with the fewest ripple effects in terms of the future. They did give up a 6th-round pick in that deal, but they also got a 6th-round pick back from Jacksonville for Ezra Cleveland, so it was largely a wash.
Real quick, no, you got to go. Final minute. Has anything, you guys had the story a couple of weeks ago about Harbaugh and possible discipline on the college side that may leak over to the NFL side if you were to go to the NFL last year or next year, Jim Tressel, Terrell Pryor being the precedent there. Has anything changed in these last 2 weeks as this story gets more and more interesting and we learn more and more on the college side? Are you any, I guess, less skeptical now? Or I'll let you put your words on it. How do you feel about Harbaugh now, 2 weeks later after you guys had that?
Well, that was this past Sunday, and that's based upon what we were hearing in terms of what the NFL potentially would do and its clubs to not have Jim Harbaugh on the sideline at the start of 2024 if he is leaving Michigan to escape a suspension that's been doled out. Now, I've had people raise Pete Carroll to me. People have raised Antonio, who just became the interim head coach of the Raiders, and it had trouble that he was facing potentially at Arizona State. But in those cases, nobody had gotten a ban. Nobody was barred from the sideline at that point. Obviously, there were programmatic impacts and fallout from those that took place here. But with Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, and I know there's people doing a lot more reporting on this than I am because it's the biggest story right now in college football, maybe the biggest story in all of sports. But I know there were calls the last couple of days based on what's been reported with the other coaches in the Big Ten, with the athletic directors in the Big Ten. You saw Ryan Walters, the head coach of Purdue that has to play Michigan this week, saying last night, hey, these aren't allegations. There's evidence. We know they were there. They bought the tickets. There's a paper trail. They took the videos. We know all that's true. There's a lot of angst here and now pressure on the Big Ten to step in and perhaps supersede to a certain degree the glacial NCAA disciplinary process. So we know that Jim Harbaugh served a 3-game suspension earlier this year. You remember, Andrew, that was because a negotiated 4-game suspension was rejected by, I believe it's called the Committee of Infractions at the NCAA. So the 3 games that Michigan gave Jim Harbaugh was to mitigate future punishment. So he's still facing future punishment for recruiting violations during the COVID-19 dead period. Now you add on top of it potentially the biggest scandal of my lifetime in college athletics with Jim Harbaugh and this Connor Stallions character and all the other things that they allegedly were doing here. You know, if you have multiple violations, and again, I'm not an expert on the NCAA rulebook, but I do know multiple major violations within a program that would yield a finding of head coach responsibility to get somebody banned for a long time. We're not talking about, oh, something was alleged, now he can't come to the NFL. No, if he gets a suspension, if the NCAA, the Big Ten, whoever, suspends Jim Harbaugh indefinitely, I would fully anticipate, because of integrity of the game and because of precedent in the Jim Tressel case, that the NFL/its clubs would have discussions about the eligibility of Jim Harbaugh. And I think that teams would be hard-pressed to have Jim Harbaugh, if, again, he has a suspension that's been handed down at the college level, having him on the field week 1 of the 2024 season.
And I'm with you on the vagaries and how different the NCAA rulebook is. We don't know every last line because, Tom, they generally make it up as they go. Look at North Carolina, who they found was basically running a diploma mill for years, and then they went, okay, no big deal.
But this is bad. Listen.
Oh, I'm not downplaying it.
Recruiting violations, like these are all bad. You look back at Jim Tressel, Terrell Pryor in 2011, they were trading tattoos and memorabilia.
Yeah, but Tressel also signed that all his players were eligible when he knew none of them were. That's what it was about.
Right. In hindsight, though, that's NIL. Now we can just have a name for it. It's something that everybody does.
Right.
This is something, no matter what level of football you're at, knowing you have a bright line rule and a team is violating it to this degree, allegedly, it's a massive, massive deal. And the NFL is going to, take a really hard look at whatever whatever ends up taking place over these next couple of months.
The insiders every day. NFL Plus, NFL Game Day morning. Sorry I missed you this past Sunday. I have truly, as I just told you there with the timeline on your Harbaugh story, lost track of time and weeks. Next time, however, let's get a drink or something.
Sounds good.
All right.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.